If I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. If I was you, I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me too. I'd wanna be me. Turn the bass up.
I wish I found some better sounds no one's ever heard. I wish I had a better voice and sang some better words. I wish I found some chords in an order that is new. I wish I didn't have to rhyme every time I sang. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. I know you gotta be able to have fun tonight. Baby, I know you gotta be able to have fun tonight.
Joined by 3 representatives of Riot Games, and they all work in the LEC. Today's panel is going to revolve around the discussion of how did the LEC come out to be one of the most popular esports broadcasts and how it is that they're setting a new standard for the esports industry. So right now we have our guests, and I'm going to ask politely for them to introduce themselves, starting off with Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Latham. I'm the Public Relations Strategist for European Esports at Riot. I've worked at Riot for about 4 years now, and my team handles all communications when it comes to the LEC and EU Masters. So that means anything that's meant to inform rather than entertain, that goes through us. So like ticket announcements or tournament format or whatever. And we also handle relations with the media and press, particularly at live events. Before I was at Riot, I was a freelance writer, and I have a degree in psychology.
All right, next we have Monica.
Hi, everybody. I'm Monica Dinsmore. I am the head of publishing for LEC. My team focuses primarily on a lot of different facets of publishing, including content, video, editorial, social, brand, creative, and Jeff is also part of my team heading up PR and comms. We also have some digital products that we take care of, things that you might see in the ancillary world of LEC, like fantasy and drops. I've been at Riot for coming up on 5 years now, and on the Berlin team for 3. And before Riot, I was in tech startups in Silicon Valley in the early days, and then I did a lot of years in asset management before coming to Riot.
All right, and next we have Alban.
Hi everyone, my name is Alban de Charlotte, and I'm the head of business development and partnership for Riot Games in Europe. And my job is just to connect brands and partners to this amazing group of talented people at Riot to create great stuff. So could be linked to sponsorship, broadcast, distribution. We have some digital products. We also have new games apparently this year. So we are very happy in this team to be able to represent such an amazing group of talents.
All right, and how did you guys come to work with League of Legends? We can start off with Monica.
Yeah, so I had a family friend that was actually a video producer on the NA team who could never stop raving about his job at Riot. And there was a point in time where there was a strange unicorn role that was available that Riot was looking for someone with a combination of software development, management experience, and finance. And then I sort of fit the bill. If you add in a little bit of nerd, then I was like, I'm your girl. And it ended up working out, and I couldn't be happier.
That's great. What about you, Alban?
It's funny. My connection to Riot Games is that I was working for a brand called Coca-Cola, and we were trying to do to connect with the fans through passion points, and one of them was gaming. And we decided to enter into a global partnership with Riot about 6 or 7 years ago. I was so amazed by the community I discovered. I was so enthusiastic by the passion of the writers to deliver the best experience possible in every single moment that I was like, I want to work in a company like that. I want to be part of the system where everybody's mind is focusing on the player's experience, and if my knowledge of like how to create this partnership that makes value for everyone could be of help to anyone, especially in Europe, which is my own region, after being a bit for a while in Atlanta, it was a perfect fit. So I joined the team 2 years ago, and I can't stop smiling since then.
That's awesome. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I was a freelance copywriter before, and I mostly wrote for gaming and esports and sometimes healthcare, actually, because my dad's a doctor. A friend of a friend was the editor-in-chief of the EU LOL esports site back then, and she was looking for some more freelance writers to work on announcements and comms beats. So I did that for a while, and a few months in, they had a new role on the public relations team. I applied, and here I am.
Sounds good. Before the League of Legends European Championship was known as the LEC, it was known as the EU LCS. What would you say were the core differences that separated these two leagues?
Of EU and NA LCS, they shared the same look, the same feel, and pretty much the exact same branding. And then you consider that there's, as an English product, both of them being English products, there's a lot of crossover when it comes to the English-speaking fan base of the two leagues. So I would say that they naturally developed a bit of a friendly rivalry over the years, and I think that the main difference was for many of those years, the EU LCS was viewed as the little sister to NA. Yeah, so I would say, like I said, not too much, although EU did have a couple of stints on the global stage coming into LEC. So you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to jump in and add something there, I think one of the biggest differences is that we now have an identity, like Monica was talking about, that's completely European, and it was built to be European from the ground up. When we were rebranding, we had the choice to go in there and be very deliberate with it. And just from a personal perspective, having been here for a while, I think we now embrace the aspect of our show that's entertainment a lot more than we used to in the past, especially during the EU LCS days. It was very like sports focused and heavy into sports. And while we still have that, we now also are embracing the entertainment and trying to provide something that people keep coming back to, want to see what we're doing each week. And also just have to add that now that we have a set of teams that don't have to worry about relegation, it's a lot easier for them to build fan bases and for fans to kind of identify with a team that they are passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, from the boring side, so the business side, I think we were very lucky that the LA, which is the HQ of Riot, decided to launch a league in Europe, and it was kind of like a package. Like you have like the NLCS and ELCS, and a lot of the efforts in terms of like aligning these leagues with partners was made from a central point of view, combining all this into one package. So as a brand, Coca-Cola, I was partner of the ELCS, the NLCS, and the global events in one bulk, and I think it was luck. Like it was lucky that Riot decided to deliver that and build this for the fans in Europe with a dedicated team. But obviously, from a business point of view, it was kind of like a distance from what was the ecosystem in Europe. We have like multiple languages, we have like advertiser markets that are different from the US, and most of the time we have advertiser markets in each of the country. So it was kind of a distance that didn't enable the league to perform as well as it could have been with being driven locally. So a lot of the big changes we have seen on the brand, on the talent, on the tone was about giving the ELCS an autonomy and also some possibility to customize to the expectation from the fans, but also from the sponsors. So I think one of the big difference was this autonomy, which enabled us to be much more listening and building value for the partners in Europe. So now we have much more partners that are European and even local rather than the global ones, which enable us to grow and to sustain the business for the league.
I would say,
Go ahead, Monica, please.
Jump in there. That is actually something that stands out for me that Alban touched on, because I did work in NA in esports prior to coming to Berlin to work for EU in esports. And from a content production perspective, Alban touched on the sort of complications of the many different languages in Europe. And it was much easier from an NA perspective to just be able to focus on one language, one region, and speak to your community that was very familiar and in your neighbor basically, and then coming to Europe and thinking about how to reach all of these different types of markets and talk to all these different types of fans that are culturally different. Their languages are different. The way they consume content is different, and so just sort of reflecting on the question about the differences between the two, that's actually really huge.
And how do you ensure that all these cultures are brought together? Do you have a specific team that focuses just on that?
We are the team, and the team has 80 languages and many countries, and I think that's a big thing. We have talent that's coming from different countries in the on-air talent. We have people in the press, in the content, in the BD team. We are Europe, and therefore I think we don't have someone that is kind of like the brain guardian. Like, are we European enough on this content?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, in every single meeting, someone will call out that this is for Spain or this is for Germany, and maybe push up some other angles.
Interesting, and even mentioning that is this European enough? I see that the LEC has broadened its horizons to be popular pretty much in every other region. I have friends from Brazil that watch it. I have friends in NA. I have friends in all over Latin America, and God knows elsewhere they are watching the LEC from. Why do you think that the LEC is so popular? Do you think it's because they're catering to so many cultures?
Well, I can speak from a content perspective. I think that one of the things that we try to do pretty religiously is listen to the fans. We make content for the fans, and whenever we produce, something new, we'll try to push ourselves to be exploring new avenues of speaking to the players. And when it resonates, we'll do it again. We'll double down on something that the fans love, and try to evolve it so that it stays fresh and interesting. But we spend a lot of time listening and making content that our entire fan base loves. And so I think that is, everyone is united in their love for League of Legends. And if we can, and that sort of breaks down many barriers. And so if we just listen to what the fans want, then it's going to resonate with fans no matter where they're at.
This moves perfectly into my next question, which is each split that LEC introduces new segments. We had the electronic last split, and then they came back. This split we had the ads that featured Shadow and featured Wipo and Hilly, and they were like those old school ads. They were so much fun to watch. How do you think that the league continues to reinvent itself around the same intellectual property? Because at the end of the day, we're still talking about League of Legends, which is a pretty old game. It's been going on for a while.
Well, from my perspective, I think that one of the most amazing things about League of Legends is no matter how long it's been around, it actually reinvents itself. So the meta changes on a regular basis, and the way that players can interact and grow and change their own play style depending on what's going on in the current meta, that gives us the ability to create new memes and to create new sort of angles of content. So that's a really helpful way that League of Legends itself kind of helps us to evolve. But yeah, I think that getting back to what I had said before about listening to fans, you touched on electronic, and that's something that we heard from when we did like the Sandstorm remake, and everyone freaked out, and we were like, okay, this music thing, there might be something to that. And then we kind of created our own band, and then recently we just did this Diplo remake, and people love it. And so we want to keep doing more of that, because one, we love it too. I mean, we're all players and fans of esports as well, but we also have a lot of fun making those things. So
all right, sorry, Jeff. I need to call out Monica now, because she seems to say that this is just because we are listening to her fans. She has a crazy gang in her team, and it's amazing. We are super lucky to have orchestrators that are amazing, not only on air, but actually creating in the backstage such amazing stories and contributing. And I've worked in creative environments where you have a creative director that says it has to be green because green is cool. And in this team, this is absolutely not the case. Like, the ideas are coming from all over around. Some ideas even, and you won't believe me, come from sponsors. And we put this on the table, and then the talent, the creative team, the content team take these ingredients and create magic of it. So that for me is a great formula, which is like the level of collaboration and the way everybody's open to listen and co-create is like super high level.
thank you, Alban.
Yeah, and just to add on, sorry, Monica, but just to add on there, I think one of the biggest things we all have going for us, this gang of people Alban's talking about, is at the end of the day, we're all passionate about esports too, and we're all fans in our own right. So we want to do well, we want to succeed, and so we're all pretty dialed into the community. And like they both keep saying, but it's true, we listen to the fans, and the fans are not afraid to tell us when something works or when it doesn't work. And that means we can adapt and take the best of what was good, and then maybe leave behind some other things and continue to adapt and to evolve and to just listen.
Sounds good. Just recently, the COVID-19 pandemic hit the entire world and caught us by surprise. I remember that the first thing that I thought when it started to hit the LCK and it started to hit the LPL, I was like, oh no, I hope this doesn't come to you, because that means I can no longer go to the press room. The players are not going to play on stage. But you guys still managed to put out a beautiful broadcast, and it was still just as much fun to watch, even though it was all done from home. I wanted to know, at what point did you guys actually start to plan for the, I would say, inevitable?
I mean, I can take some few on this one, and then Jeff, please feel free to build that. First of all, it's dramatic, and for us as anybody else, it's about our families or friends, and seeing this thing happening was, we're afraid like everybody else,
Right.
But the clear thing is, for us, we cannot find the what will save the health, so we have to do something else, and what we do best is the show. So we're just focusing on trying to do what we can do best to at least relieve with entertainment what the people were experiencing at home. We saw this coming from China 3 months before it arrived in Europe, and we didn't immediately understood what was going on, but we had early signal, and we are very close. We're very connected at Riot to understand what everybody's doing, so we can learn from it. So with a leadership team and the help from everyone, we start to analyze some scenarios, and we prepare some reaction. And when some few signal happens and some regulation change, it was not a surprise for us. We're anticipating these scenarios, and we just took the decision based on them. Priority was first and foremost the health of the players, the health of the fans, the health of the crew, and after that, the continuity of the show. And continuity means that when we decided to cancel the final in Budapest, we're very sad for the people that were expecting us to come, because we've never been in this city. At the same time, we had a plan to say, okay, now that will enable us to do the final somewhere else, which is in the studio. And then it happens that we had some early signals that someone in the crew may have been infected. So we decided to take the earliest possible the decision to shut down the show. This is probably the saddest moments in my career, almost, because we had to go from the office to the studio to disturb the people that were working for a few hours about the rehearsal for the show, to inform them that the show will not happen. And that moment was really, really sad. And at the same time, I had to go to the green rooms, inform the teams that already arrived that they have to go home. And everybody's like, I mean, there were some very, very sad faces, like not only sad, you know. And because for us, we were letting down the fans. But the great thing is that we had already a parallel team working for about 3 weeks before this decision on what will happen if we take this decision. So that's why we didn't have six days to go live and remote. We actually had more because another team was already working on that solution. So big kudos to the production team there. They did magic. I usually say, I don't know if you saw Apollo 13, the movie where they sent a rocket to the moon and they lost everything and they have to come back. That's pretty much what we asked to the production team. They had like a bit of like strapper and like a bit like crate, and they had to create a show. So instead of a like multi-million-dollar facility that you know, Lara, because you come to the studio, we had modems and internet from phones and then laptop, and they had to, you know, create a show that looks like the same, or at least like make the impression that it's the same, with like this, which was like 3 lines. If 2 of them go down because of a internet in Berlin, we still have a 3rd one. So that's what they did in 1 week. The second moment, the saddest moment, was the first Friday because we had some sound issue. And it was like, oh my God, they spent so much time and hours and we have sound issues. And again, they spent the night, all the night from Friday to Saturday, nonstop, so that the Saturday the show was almost intact. So this is not the norm. This is not the same show. We were actually sad to see that this was not as good as what we could do. And the minute we could come back to the studio, we did, because we love our studio and give us so much capabilities to give great show to the fans. But still, it's amazing. The players stayed with us in the gaming house, protected within their own gaming house and connected to us. Everybody in 40 different apartments across Berlin created this network, virtual network of LEC. And the fans. I mean, the fans at home. I don't know if you saw some numbers, but
yes, I did.
I mean, it's crazy to see that we did it for a reason, and the reason was we wanted to give it to them. And not only we managed to finish the season, but we actually celebrated some numbers we never saw before, with actually fans gathering with us and celebrating esports, dancing even, because we did some few other things there. So I think it was an amazing experience for me. I feel super proud of the production team and everybody who made it happen, and I was super happy we could deliver this for the fans.
Yeah, and just to add on there a little bit, we, as Alban said, we had been preparing for it to happen eventually, but I don't think any of us were prepared for it to happen that quick. And the way he described it, like walking over to the office, from the office to the studio and having to make a tough call, it really was that sudden. And from a comms perspective, that was the quickest turnaround on an announcement I've ever had to do, and it was interesting and stressful, but also really sad because we were basically not going to have the show to watch that night, but we had to make the right call for everyone's health. And as you know, Lara, the press experience also changed dramatically. Had to go completely remote for press and the players, which meant that not only did we have to find a solution that worked for journalists, we also had to find one that worked for the teams and get buy-in from them, because ultimately they also need the tech facilities. They need to have program that would work with accounts on Discord and a whole bunch of things that I had never thought of before. And then suddenly we're pulling it together and trying to do something that can at least continue on. And I'm really proud of how we did it and how it actually turned out in the end, and that we managed to keep doing remote interviews the entire time. I don't think there was a single day where we didn't get any.
You're right. I actually wanted to make a comment on that. I don't think I've ever seen the press room be that packed. I mean, the good thing about going online is that we have Ashley Kang coming in from Korea, and she's a fantastic journalist and adds so much. And to have these people that didn't have the opportunity to cover the LEC before is just so fantastic. It's great to interact with them. Guys, I am in the LEC press room every weekend religiously interviewing players, and never had an issue because Discord is really simple. And I wanted to personally thank you guys for facilitating this, because for us news outlets that depend on these interviews, it was really scary to just hear that perhaps we wouldn't be able to do our content anymore. And this has been huge. You guys are facilitating this for the entire ecosystem. And truly, I am grateful for it, as I'm sure that many other journalists that are watching us right now are also grateful. moving forward.
Good
in
job,
terms
Jeff.
of,
Good job, Jeff.
yes, Jeff, you did a fantastic job. In terms of logistics, you mentioned that you guys had 40 different apartments in Berlin. What was it like to actually coordinate that broadcast?
It was a nightmare. Okay, so and we are very far from it. We are lucky to have people that like created this model. Once in a meeting, they showed us like the different links and how they created the different connection, and we're like, what is that? Like, how do you understand how you do this? So I will not be able to describe it. What I can tell you is that we use the simplistic software. You know, the simplistic like really like comms tools that are used for meetings, and we use computers like Dell, like Office, computers,
Right.
to create the same thing that we do with professional television software. The graphics team had to recreate every single layers, but we usually can do manually and dynamically on air. And they had to thought through every single stage of the show to recreate the impression that it is the same show. But in reality, it was people moving like boards and trying to make it look like the show. So it's, being a bit closer than average to how much effort they put into this, and the creativity and the genius they put to find the solution to make it looks like the same is really a privilege and really interesting to watch. I have to say a word about the sponsors, first because that's my job, but I want to say they were also super supportive. Very early stage when we saw the cancellation of the final, and after that the cancellation of the studio, we make very clear, and I made very clear to the team, that sponsor will not be the priority, because priority will be health, and secondly, continuity of the show. And if we can do something for the sponsors, we'll do it, but that should come after. And I had the same speech to my partners that say, look, I hope you will understand that the priority for us will be in this order, and from this order, we'll do our best. And when I said that, I was expecting that actually I would have to let down some of the deliverables. And the reality is we did not. The production team, after 7 days, after 8 days, already started to deliver every single point of our partnership. And in addition, came up with like some additional touch point, additional way to expose the brands, additional content. Meanwhile, the partners were totally understandable. They were actually, some of them, impressed by the flexibility, agility of the team, because they were at the same time living the dream of working from home with logistics, and they knew it was not easy to do this kind of thing.
Right.
And when all the sports stopped, LEC continued. And not only that, but the sponsors continued. They stick with us, they work with us. And a lot of ideas that they had for the finals in Budapest and the final in Malmö, they came up together with us, and they started to create digital virtual version of it, to make sure that the fans get the same rewards, get the same support, get the same excitement with content that sometimes was shot inside the apartment of the casters instead of outside, to create the same experience. So thanks million and billion to the sponsors and the partners that really were partners and not just sponsors in this really difficult time for us. The last thing you need when everything fall apart and you have to, be the cupboard to make the show look like great, is partners that put pressure on you to do like it's normal. And it's not. And they did not. And they actually been super flexible, super reactive. And we are very happy that at the end, we delivered almost everything that was contractually obligated. We came up with additional ideas thanks to the production team, and the viewership almost doubled. So I think everybody has been rewarded for such a passion and support.
Sounds good. Does anyone else have anything to add on the topic?
I would just say that Albon touched a little bit on this, where, just from a content production perspective, we spend a lot of time creating a campaign around finals that starts way, way, way before finals.
Right.
And it's usually built around the place we're going. And we try to incorporate special things about each city that we go to, and pay homage to why we're there, and make it, really, really obvious that we're thinking about what is happening in that city that we're bringing this amazing show to. So when we decided to cancel Budapest in the beginning, it was like, okay, so now we got to pivot the creative. And then it was like, as we're thinking about content plans and COVID, is advancing and things are changing, we had to stay really nimble down to the point where, as Alban touched on, we couldn't shoot live videos anymore. So we had to figure out how we're going to keep the tone of voice of LEC, create the hype leading into finals that everyone's used to seeing, talk about how awesome it's going to be from our homes. And so, that's when we have to give kudos to the teams as well, because, they also were very collaborative and very supportive when we needed to make all of these changes, and we had to put, cameras in their gaming houses, and, they had to kind of deal with us like flinging technology at them, and they were really, really supportive. And I think that as we talked about, everyone ended up being ultimately really happy, even though it was a very kind of painful and confusing and somewhat chaotic process. But again, like the teams are just so creative and so, resilient. And it was just really awesome, for me to watch my teams just sit there and figure out, okay, how are we going to make everything look and feel very similar when it really just isn't. So, and we got a lot of really great feedback from the content that we made, Yamato in the shower, and
that was so great. That was I was so impressed that everyone pulled that video off. That was amazing.
Yeah, me too. And again, that's like having a video producer directing people in a shoot when they're not able to just be there. It's just, again, very a lot of challenges that ended up just being creatively solved by people that are just passionate about delivering this for our fans. So yeah, it was great.
Jeff, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to add on to both of them, I think they both pretty much have it covered, but I think one of the main things that I was keeping in my head going through this was that we just needed to be really genuine with our audience, and everyone knew what was happening. Everyone was going through the COVID situation together and lockdown across Europe. So there was no point in shying away from it or trying to hide that fact or hide the fact that it would change our production. So we're just pretty honest with it. Everyone was pretty open about it on Twitter, on social media, on the show even. And I think that really helped us resonate with people a bit more, because it was this feeling of we're all in it together. Like we're all trying to figure this out at the same time. And like they said, I'm really proud with what we ended up with.
Yeah, I think that the LEC team provided support to people that may have not been able to get it at that time. Especially, the casters were very communicative, and it was really nice to see that, not just on their streams, but also on Twitter and on broadcast too. Not to point this out, but I remember the first week, I remember that there were difficulties, and I remember a specific part, but like there was a difficulty starting a game. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but Shox just started talking genuinely with other people, and although that didn't feel like the regular LEC, it didn't feel like it was out of place. So it's been very interesting to see how you guys are progressing. And enough of talking about like the things that may have not worked out like we wanted to. I think that it's been very clear that esports has not just necessarily lost from this situation. I think that a lot of it will benefit the future of the industry. Like you guys have been able to figure out new ways of overcoming like this huge issue of a pandemic. What do you guys think that will be open for the league now that you guys have overcome this challenge?
It's a difficult topic, because it's a health crisis, so. Right. So I want to step back and say that we benefited, but we are also suffered, and everybody's still afraid for families and friends and things. So I want to take this with a pinch of salt about like, okay, it's little benefits, but in a big crisis. What we saw, it's very simple. We saw the team came together. We saw the difference between the EURCS and the LEC that you mentioned earlier. In the EURCS, the team were competing for keeping their slot and winning at all costs. In the LEC, we have 10 partners that work together to make the league the best thing it can be. And we saw that again in this crisis. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of broadcast partners coming to us from a linear side and asking, "Oh, can we broadcast the LEC?" I was like, "Sure, we can talk, but do you know it's a 12-hour show?" Like, what? And so like, okay, so we had some interesting conversation, and I'm very proud because from this conversation now we have a show in Poland, in France, in Spain, where linear television are showing the show, and we had to be creative. So now we have a 52 minutes format, which is a catch up from a match of the week. And the conversation was initiated in the crisis moment, but the outcome is now a sustainable relationship that we're opening with linear TVs, trying to define a format that fits with their needs and enable more discoverability for the fans. We had like never a music opening ceremony for the EULCS or esports in Europe for us, and want a musical partner like we're working with us to find a way to get an artist to come to Budapest. And it's difficult because you have tough schedule to organize, but because he was playing from home, we had Mr. Schultz in his home apartment creating an amazing show for us. So I think all these constraints actually generated so much value in terms of creating more value for the fans. A lot of sponsors learned that they could create things virtually with us and embrace the digital component of our sports much better now that they could not do the events. So I think a lot of examples with KitKat and Pringles that did this very, very well, learning and embracing the situation to create more value. So very excited for what it created for the long term. We know how to do this kind of like remote. Maybe it's going to open us more possibilities in terms of events, and also again created the sentiment that this team is very strong, can face adversity and do amazing things. And I think that's the biggest thing for us is the power of the team, because that's what delivered all the LC so far.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I saw us both unmute at the same time. I'll go first. I think, like Alban was saying, we learned so much, and we learned a lot about how we can do things moving forward, and we're now more ready for these type of things. And actually, Lara, you talked about this earlier. We now, from a press perspective, we have journalists covering the league who previously couldn't because it was very much tied to being in the studio here in Berlin. So we have people all over the world now, 12 hours ahead, 12 hours behind, covering the show, which is totally different and really exciting. And now we're looking into how can we keep that moving forward so we don't lose that once we can go back to the studio. How do we take these learnings, take the best of them while also taking the best of before and kind of creating an experience for everyone. So it's really exciting, I think.
That's awesome. I was about to ask if you guys had any plans of continuing to open the doors to all sorts of press outlets from all over the world. And I think that's very exciting. I'm sorry, don't mean to cut you, Monica. You can go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that is exactly what is kind of the important takeaway from for us in this situation is we realize that we can reach more people. We realize that we can interact with more people if we focus on what is virtual and digital. So I think that, as Jeff mentioned, when we're finally able to come back and be live and hold these amazing large events at finals again, we will continue to incorporate the sort of digital and virtual experience so that we can reach more fans. It would be a shame if we didn't take advantage of the things that we've learned and try to take them forward, regardless of whether we can amplify it with a big event or not. And so we're doing some exploration into digital activations and virtual activations, even beyond like next year, so that we can think about, again, like, let's just bring the LEC to as many people in as many different places as possible. And I think that will, these lessons that we've learned and the way we've been able to push ourselves to be innovative just kind of lights a fire and makes us want to do more. And so I think that you'll see us continue to try and think about how we don't just go back to normal, and everyone talks about how there's going to be a new normal. And I think that's what it's going to be like for us, is just trying to reach as many fans as we can.
That's awesome. I know that recently you guys partner with, I believe, Ingon, which is it's a Portuguese broadcast company, and they're broadcasting the league in Portuguese, and now there's broadcast in all other languages, and they're official, I believe. So it's really wonderful to see that you guys are being able to reach even bigger of an audience.
I mean, we know we have fans in Portugal.
Yeah.
I heard that the Portuguese accent is very fancy for the Brazilian fans too.
But there's a Brazilian on the broadcast, and
I know.
French has been so happy about it.
I know. So that's something, and we do this in partnership with Riot Games Brazil to make sure that we're not making any conflict with CBLOL. So we're really respectful about making this as an additional value, not a conflict. We had our first official broadcast in Korea this year. We are expanding in China, so it's a testament of several things, I think. One is obviously the fact that Europe is now recognized as a unique league that has some interesting storylines, but obviously also the performance of our teams in the latest global events with G2, Splice now becoming Mad and Fnatic, of course help us, because we are a sporting league and it's great to be unique. We have a diversity of culture and profile that is unique to LEC, but obviously it's only work if we win. So that's the combination that will make us succeed, is that finally we're going to win the final. That's the goal. That's all we want. It's like enough 3-0. This is what we want for this year.
I totally believe it. I would love to see Mad Lions lift off that trophy. To close things off, everyone, what do you see changing in the future of esports as a whole, not just necessarily to the LEC, from what we have learned so far?
Go ahead, Alban.
I was going to offer to start if you want. Yeah. I think what is interesting for me, coming from a background which is sports business. So I've done 15 years in sports, and I'm discovering this crazy world, and I'm amazed, So I obviously I'm like, what do you want to change? You're already ahead, So it's great. But clearly for me, what is interesting is the balance between global and local. Esports has been founded on the idea of a global entertainment consumed virtually, and I think the more we can reconnect with like the different culture, different languages, also connect the digital and the physical, when we're going to be able to travel again. It's going to be very interesting, and because that's the source, and obviously that comes with the diversity. We talk a lot about diversity in terms of like languages and culture, but obviously we had some activities recently where we had on stage mixed teams, and that has to be the goal. That has to be the next step for us to have a real diversity. We need to have ages, culture, nationalities, but of course gender. So I think this is for me like bigger, faster, as always, because we are passionate, but the connection to local, physical, and diverse is what's going to make the success of esports in the long term.
My thoughts are a little bit more simple, just in terms of the fact that esports was able to continue, whereas many traditional sports weren't throughout the COVID situation.
Right.
I think it just raises awareness in general about esports and esports being a sport, and whereas people maybe weren't paying attention before, or I think less and less do people like Alban have to explain esports to the sort of non-endemic world. But this kind of gives esports a bit of a springboard to kind of say, hey, we are versatile, we are resilient, we are a sport. It's interesting to watch, and if you're not doing anything else, then turn it on, So I think just in general, the idea that many esports were able to continue because most of what you're watching is digital anyway. It just kind of opens doors and creates additional opportunity where there wasn't maybe before, or the conversation becomes a little bit easier to kind of just understand. So just from my perspective, it just opens up a conversation that maybe wasn't there before.
Hopefully we will be seeing less people go on Twitter and tweet at ESPN, what the hell is this that we're seeing on screen, because they have no idea what
Yeah.
video games are. But
Yeah, and I think we'll last a little longer than marble racing.
oh, I hope so. I really do. Jeff, do you have anything to add on the topic?
Yeah, just to completely agree with what Monica was saying, one of the main things that I do in my job, especially over the past few years, is explain to people what esports is and why they should care about it. And now I think that's going to be a lot less. People have taken notice. They actually are respecting it more than they used to, and you're seeing it become more mainstream outlets like ESPN covering it, and it's really exciting to see, and I hope we get to see that carried forward.
Sounds good. All right, guys, what are some of the things that you are looking forward to see when things start to normalize again? And this can be in your broadcast if you wish to talk about that.
I can't wait for the after party for the summer split final. So that's personal, you know. We miss our Berlin vibe where the team can get together after the show. More seriously, I think a very important elements of education and discovery for sponsors and partners is to come to the studio, because then they realize the passion in the eyes of the fans, the preparation of the coach around the players, the emotion that they get at the end of each game. And I think this physical experience is missing. It's when you send them the link and they watch it on Lord Watch and they discover this moving pictures. They're a bit confused, you know.
Right.
But if you bring them to the studio, make the tour, show the control room, explain what's happening, there's no doubt. They're like, okay, now I get it. No, I get it. And then 3 months later, you bring them to the final, and they see Romain on stage, and everybody screaming.
Yeah.
They get it, and they want to be part of this movement, you know. So I miss that for my daily job, because that was an important step in the conviction process. But you know, more than anything, the after party, you know.
I would say, from my perspective, one of the reasons that made me want to work in esports is when first when I went to my first like esports experience, it was in Korea in 2014, and that was just like mind blowing. I had never experienced anything like it, and so I was just kind of like shocked. And I wasn't working in esports at the time, but then I went to every single stop in NA when Worlds was in NA, and I was working for the NA team. And the most amazing feeling is when you get to see fans walk in the arena and you get to see all of their reactions to the hard work that you've put in over the course of however many months preparing for that event. It's like so humbling and so inspiring, just creating something that you know fans are going to love, and you just can't wait for them to get there and see it and experience it. So that's what I miss the most, is not being able to actually see the fans interact with our product, because that is like what makes you want to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it.
Yeah, for me too, it's pretty similar. What I'm most looking forward to is going back to the studio and seeing everyone again. For most of us, we go twice a week, and for some of us, it's been for years. So we're all really close to each other. There's all the players, all the staff. There's some fans who come to every single show. There's the security, there's catering, there's everyone, and you really get used to seeing each other. And I think we're all missing that component, that like feeling of community that esports provided for all of us. So I'm really looking forward to the day where we all get to go back.
I also look forward to going back. I think we all miss each other. I do have to say, the first week that I was here, I flew to Germany, moving here, and the first thing that I faced was the LEC. I was here the day before the spring season started, and the moment that I got to the studio, everyone was just so nice. And I wanted to say that I appreciate the hospitality, really, from from catering to casters. Everyone over there is just incredible. And on that note, I would like to thank you guys for coming to our panel today. I really appreciate it. I know it's nighttime for us here in Germany, and NA has a full day. There's like so many panels that you guys are going to get to see, and thank you for attending ours. I will see you guys in the upcoming panels then.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
See you soon.
See ya.
Baby, I'm dangerous. Gasoline in my pocket is fire. Won't stop, stop, stop until your mind ticks out. Here's a